Good morning. This is March 15th, I believe, and it's a beautiful sunny morning, and we're in front of a bus, and I'm with Marie Turner. And Marie, could you tell us where we're going?
We're going down at the Deer Island facility to tour the facility this morning and let some of these people who have not had the opportunity to see the tremendous changes down there to view it with us this morning.
Well, Marie, I know I'm coming, and I'm glad you invited us, George and myself, because I find it interesting, but how did this come about? I know this, you know...
Well, a friend who worked in town hall, who lives at the point, asked me one day if they'd be given an opportunity to see the island. Even though she lived there, she hadn't seen it since all the construction took place. So I said, well, if there's need out there and people are willing to go, we'll see if we can't set up some tours, take them through and let them see what's going on.
So this will go on all summer?
This is the first tour that I have set up. Hopefully we're going to have some more through the summer.
Well, let's go. Deer Island.
We're on our way. Hi, Nick.
He wants me to go back to the gate. Would you explain to him? I can't explain to him. It's a tour.
Yeah, sure. Hold on.
He wants me to turn around and he's all over me, okay?
Yep.
Hi, we're on the bus, and Mr. Collier will be explaining where we are and what we're going to be doing as we tour Deer Island. Right now, Mr. Collier is outside explaining to the guard that we are a tour bus and that we're here and we're on our way in, so we should be doing this momentarily. Hi, Mr. Collier is back on the bus. We did explain to the guard that why we were here, so here we go.
One other thing, as I said, most of what we do here is we try to separate the water from the 0.02% of solids. So the island, the whole treatment process is a maze of valves and pumps. We use electricity for this, and it's absolutely essential that we have a reliable supply of electricity. So the main supply of electricity is an underwater cable that goes from the Edison in South Boston under Boston Harbor and comes...
Excuse us.
Yeah, he's going here. What does he want? I don't know what he wants. Well, that's all right. Well, this is Carl. I don't know. His is a backup power plant. This backup power plant is a 10 megawatt plant. So, and this is only in case the main cable breaks or the northeast grid goes down, as happened in the blackout of, what was it, 65. If that happened, we wouldn't be able to do anything here in Deer Island, and the sewerage would back up, and we'd all be in deep you-know-what. So we have this backup power plant with about 4 days of fuel on the island, and we could take care of all of our energy needs from that plant. This is the plant on the left here with the, what they call the, some people in Point Shirley call the MWRA screw job on the top. It's the smokestack with the vanes, okay? That's the power plant. One of the things, most of the sewerage that comes here, with the exception of the North Main, the Winthrop's own sewerage, most of the rest of the sewerage comes here by gravity. So the sewerage arrives about 112 feet below the island. And our first job is to bring it up onto to the level of the island so we can deal with it. And that's what we use the electricity for. This is the power plant on the left. And the point at which the sewerage gets lifted up from 112 feet below is in this round building with the gray facade. That's the pump station. And it pumps all the sewerage up to ground level. And this used to be the head of the old plant. And then the sewerage used to go from north to south. In the new plant, the sewerage goes south to north. And so once we bring it up to ground level, we have to pump it to the south end of the island where it begins with the wastewater treatment process. And we'll talk about that in a little while. But this is the pumping area. That's the old admin building on the left. I think they may keep that up. There was initially they're going to take it down, but they put the shower rooms and lockers and stuff. You can imagine back in the old days. Bob, you want to pull up here to the right, just kind of.
How big is the island?
It's about 210 acres. Back in the old days, when the MWRA was created back in 1985, one of the first things, that they took, about 700 people from the old MDC, the Water and Sewer Divisions, and they made them the MWRA. Now, those 700 people were really the operations. They were the teeth of the organization. They had been supported in state government by payroll, procurement, legal, and all that stuff by the state government, support structure. They couldn't utilize that support structure, so they had to surround those folks with a new administration. That was part of the judge insisted that the MDC, that the MWRA be totally separate from the state, because the state hadn't kind of kept up with the things and had let the thing go to pot. So they didn't want any part of that. It was at that point that I got hired and a whole bunch of other folks, yeah. And so the then boss, a guy named Phil Shapiro, who was actually the acting executive director, he said, well, we got to show immediately the people at Deer Island that we mean business, that the world is going to be different, that we're going to make a commitment to support them and so forth. And the first thing he did, I thought was pretty neat. He went out and he bought a bunch of clothes washers, and he put them out here. Because up till then, the guys who worked out here would have to go home with their dirty work clothes, and it was, when I say dirty work clothes, I mean dirty work clothes. And it was, it was a problem for them at home. And just to be able to do their own laundry out here was, it was an immediate improvement in their quality of life, and it was kind of a commitment that things are going to be different around here. So in that building are the locker rooms, and we get some washes. Actually, now I think we have a contract because we have enough people, and also the stuff, believe it or not, just washing the clothes of some of the workers out here, what you take out of them is itself, it's not eligible. It's too dirty to go back in the sewers, so you have to treat it. Be about just under 400, and that's, we're about at that level now.
What about the administrative staff on the other side?
Well, there's 1,700 people altogether in the MWRA, about 1,780 something. Probably there's about 400 on the island. There's probably another 120 in what we call TRAC, Toxic Reduction and Control. And I want to talk about that in a minute. There's probably another 300 or 400 that work the pump stations that maintain the sewer lines and so forth. So that's the sewer division. Then you have the water division, and there's probably about maybe 600 people in the water division who do similar jobs. And then you have the administration part of it, and I think the administration part of it is about 600. So I think that's about the where it comes in. Those 600 would be payroll, legal. We have internal auditors. We have contract administrators. We have the people that work personnel. We have labor relations, the people that negotiate contracts. Public affairs, my group. That's pretty much it. Then we have small groups that we got 3 or 4 people that work with schools. I mean, we've worked a lot in Winthrop schools and things like that. They teach kids about sewage and water and all this business. So that's pretty much the lineup. There's about maybe a dozen people that work in the executive director's office. The boss. Say again?
How much money have you spent?
It's about close to $3 billion. Well, I shouldn't say it's spent. Kind of dedicated, because the bulk, most of, when you send, let's say, when Winthrop sends their bill to the MWRA, more than half of that bill, about 52%, goes to paying the interest on the money we borrowed. So, in some cases it's spent, but it's certainly committed. So that's it. When I say $3 billion, most of that is just, it's like buying a house, like your mortgage. Most of it's the interest on the principal, So it's, that's the way it is. That's the way public works things are done. That and as I mentioned, the lab is important because we've got to keep track of how the bugs are doing. I drive around. I got my my Tums. I mean, in your stomach, you get a pH imbalance, something happens, and we get a stomach ache. I mean, that same thing happens here. And these guys in the lab are responsible for keeping track of all that, guys and women in the lab. They also do, from time to time, we get samples from Winthrop. The Board of Health sends us out samples and stuff. This is where we do it. We used to send it out to the Lawrence labs, but now the lab up here is certified and can do tests and so forth. So we do a lot of that stuff here too, and a lot of the drinking water testing. Just it makes sense. I mean, you know, we test drinking water every day to make sure it's, you know, it's all good and stuff. On the left, this low-lying building is the old steam pump station here on the left, and this is where we're going to have coffee in a couple minutes. This is the only original building from pre-1967. This building here, it's 1898, and one of the things I think the people in Winthrop should know is notice the level, the elevation of that building. It's kind of set in a bowl. That's the elevation of the old island. The new elevation is what you see, and the reason we raised the elevation, well, two reasons, but the main reason is you've heard about global warming. I mean, you know, is the sea level getting higher? And there's a lot of discussion about whether sea level is getting higher or not, but if it is, we've got this investment, this almost $3 billion investment out here that we expect to last for a good long time. So we've got the higher elevation of the island. And we did that with the dirt from the drumlin, which used to be right behind this building, okay? And it also, on the outfall, we can use the outfall via gravity. We don't have to pump it because of the little bit of higher elevation. This is the primary treatment, and we'll see a little bit of it. If those of you who've been out here since 1967, remember we had 8 2-million-gallon swimming pools side by side by side. This has taken the place of that, and those things used to, it was pretty clear, if there was any odors, I mean, you know, from time to time, given the right circumstances, those odors would migrate down to Winthrop because they were open to the atmosphere. We've closed them in now. So in theory and in practice, truly, the air that comes off the digesters gets cleaned before it gets released into the atmosphere. So the concept here is zero tolerance for odors. You know, we're still working on it. We've got a little bit of improvements to make, but essentially it's zero odors. Bob, you want to take the left here, please? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, we're going to go down. Yeah, I'm sorry. All right. Yeah. Okay, you can see the eggs on the left. This is the ferry pier on the right. Okay, so eventually this pier will be available to recreational boaters and so forth. It's probably in about 2 more years. We'll still be using it, though, you know, for loading and unloading stuff, but it'll only be probably a couple of hours a day. Everything that you see out here has been brought over on these piers. We have a deal with the town that we can bring 14 trucks through a day, but that really is mostly like UPS and stuff. It isn't really the main way that we get stuff out here. It's all through this. On the left, this buff-colored building is the concrete batching plant. It's like what Boston Sand and Gravel has down around North Station, but because we bring stuff over on the ferry boats, if we were bringing concrete out, we used a heck of a lot of concrete out here. It was a danger it would set up on the way out here, so we generated our own concrete out here. This building will come down, and this is where the employee parking will be. Right now, you saw it back when we first came through the gate. That's going to be moved up here, so the employees are going to be parking up here when this building goes. Yeah, the other tunnel hole through. Yeah. I'll show you that. This is the bulkhead. This is where all the bulk stuff comes, like the sand and the aggregate for the concrete, and stones come off here. On the right here, this is a gas station. Rather than have every contractor fueling up his or her trucks, you know, themselves and having gasoline in the ground and having problems, we put it out to bid, and the lowest bidder this is the island gas station. So this is where you'd come to get your fuel. On the right here, just beyond this, is the trash. This is the town dump. you know, you come out here with your trash and you toss it in the compactor, and then they haul it off and bring it to a landfill or whatever they do with it. So that's the dump. This is where I don't know if any of you saw the WCAT pictures of the tall ships when we had them out here, but this is where we took it from. That's Long Island, just over there. We're going to get a better view of all that from up in the egg, so I'm not going to stop here, but Bob is going to pull up. Bob, why don't you pull up just in front of this truck with the trash in on the left and kind of loiter, and I'll... Now, I was telling you about the outfall pipe. The outfall pipe is 9.5 miles long, 27 feet in diameter. After we line it, it's 25 feet in diameter. And yeah, just right here, Bob, can you kind of stick around for a minute? And then we have the 55 riser pipes. Now currently, after we take the 0.02% of junk out of the sewage, we're left with water. And we chlorinate that water to kill any bacteria left, and we put it out into President's roads. And it's like a big garden hose. And it's about, you know, on an average day like today, it might be about 400 million gallons, okay? That just goes right out there. It's like it comes right out of the garden hose, and that's it. That's not the best way of doing it. The best way of doing it is the way we're going to do it here, where it comes up 55. It's like a lawn soaker instead of a garden hose. It's going to come out and spurt out, and it allows it to get mixed in, and it's a lot better operation. So at the top of each of those 55 3-foot wide pipes, we have a diffuser cap, and the diffuser cap looks kind of like the nose cone of a rocket ship. And each one of the diffuser caps has 8 ports. So now 400 million gallons of sewage, of water, it's the water from which the sewage has been removed, goes out in the Boston Harbor like a garden hose. Shortly, it will go out into the Gulf of Maine on the other side of Deer Island, and be introduced into the marine environment through 480 ports. You look back over your right-hand shoulder and you see that buff-colored thing that looks like the nose cone of a rocket ship. That's the riser cap. There's 55 of them down there now on the top of those 3-foot diameter pipes. And when we open up the outfall, which is about maybe a year and 4 months, that's the way the effluent will get introduced. Yeah, and if you count it, there's 8 of those ports. So we needed 55, but we actually ordered 57. So we have 2 spares. The installation, I mean, it was this is what they were doing with the Texas towers out there. Do you remember a couple of years ago? All right, that's what they were doing. Was they were doing the tunnels, and then capping them. So we have 2 spares, and we have 1 spare all in cosmoline and stuff, and that would be the first spare we would use. And this one we put out here to show people. I mean, so you can understand. I mean, ordinarily you're not going to see that thing down. You know, it's 120 feet. The end. I told you before, if you were going up by the graves and you went down to be about 60 feet, but at the very terminus of the pipe, 9.5 miles out, it's about 112 feet at mean high tide. So it's pretty far down, and you're not generally going to see it. Okay, Bob, you want to move over to the... This is the fence, by the way. So the plant will be inside the fence, and the public park will be outside the fence. And we're going to be doing a little bit more landscape, and it's not going to be a golf course or anything, but it's, you know, there'll be paths and trees and bushes, and there'll be little stones. You know, if you look out there, the stone will say that's Long Island, and there'll be a stone looking in the plant. If you look in here, these things are eggs and, you know, digesters and all that. So it'll be like an interpretive walk, because, you know, the main thing is, I think what the MWRA is committed to is that the old plant was allowed to go to seed because the public wasn't here to see it and to say this is a shame. And the key to keeping this stuff going is going to be the public having access to it and seeing it and not letting us go to sleep on it. This is the Bob, hold on a second. You can see the railing around the new seawall. Okay, we've put this seawall up. And this is, you know from yourself, this is where you get clobbered in the storms. So we really can't afford to get clobbered. I mean, so we built this. It's a pretty big seawall, believe me. And say again?
What's the depth?
The depth of water, yeah, it's about 22 feet. And the area between this fence and that railing, that's going to be the public access. Now, in some areas, in a lot of areas, it's a lot wider. But at this area, that's the width. This is about the narrowest. The other narrow part will be in front of the piers. We're going to have to figure out, you won't always be able to go around the island because we will be using the piers a couple of hours a day. So during those couple hours, obviously, you know, we can't have kids getting run over by trucks and stuff. But most of the time, you're going to have public, it's going to be full-time public access. Okay, Bob, just, I think this is the turnoff that we want. So if you just, can you pull in? You want to back it? All right, because we're just going to get off and go up the elevator there. Sure. You can see the, yeah, say again? Yeah, so the theory, yeah, that's, so you don't take it head on, yeah, yeah. We lost about, I don't know, about 6 or 8 months. We had a bad winter for northeast storms about 3 years ago. It wasn't last year with all the snow, it was a couple years before that with the northeasters. And we lost about 6 or 8 months of construction time because of the beating we took. We had planned to put the seawall up anyway, but it just kind of reinforced that you need it when... Okay, Bob, you... Go ahead. Okay, I guess pretty much straight ahead of us is, you can see the Long Island Bridge heading from Squantum out toward Long Island. And you can notice on Long Island the water tower and the hospital. As you pan going roughly northeast, you can see the hospital, you can see the light out there. And in that raised area there are Native American graves that have been identified. You can see the Deer Island light out in the middle of President's Roads. As you pan, you can see some of the harbor islands going down to Point Allerton and Hull.
Mr. Collier, I have a question for you. We're up here and everything is wide open.
Yep.
And it's processing what it's supposed to be doing,
Right,
obviously.
right.
Why is it so exposed to the weather? Wouldn't that damage the piping and everything else?
That's a good point. Most, and we'll show you some specific things, but this is designed to work in a marine environment. I mean, there's no, it would be an unnecessary expense to enclose it. The eggs themselves are actually cladded in an insulating material, and it's the eggs that we're concerned with the temperature, because the temperature in the eggs has to be the same temperature generally as our stomach, so it's 96 degrees, 98 degrees warmth. We're standing outside the insulation of the eggs, and there's just no need to have this. It's covered enough and it's high enough that we don't get an accumulation of snow. We have very small trucks that can carry cranes if we have to get at this material, but it's designed so that we're not going to get the accumulation of snow. The temperature, the men and the women that work here wear protective suits and so forth, so it isn't as a concern. I honestly don't know. It looks to be about 115, 120 feet, but I don't know the exact elevation. Sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Has everybody seen what
Okay, right now we're going into the main control of the MWRA, where everything is run from. And we're going to try to get as much information as we can.
Tom's working on running things. He's going to take a minute to show you to tell you what this is all about. And, yeah, right. All right. And he won't sing. He's got a good voice, but he won't sing. So he's going to take a minute and tell you what this is all about, and then we'll clear out. But he's got to work too, so if something happens, we'll just get out of here.
This is the primary control center. We run most of the island from here. The only part we don't run is the pump station. North Main, Winthrop, and South Pump Station as of yet. On these monitors, I have all the screens for different parts of the plant so that I can monitor, make adjustments. I also have operators out in the field that I can send out in the field to make adjustments that I can't make from up here. This is the dog head screener we use. It's the whole layout for the island. I can just click on any point, it'll bring up a certain area I want to look at. over here, brings up my primary tanks, which are out here. I can see what tanks I have online, what equipment's running. And bring it back to my dog head. Any place I need to look at, I can click on whether it's my residuals or my primaries area.
Tom, this dog set, this is actually a kind of a schematic drawing of the island, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
It's the layout of the island, showing all the different areas.
we're up in here someplace?
Yeah. Currently, we're right up here.
Okay, and this is the egg we were in, over here.
We're right up
Okay,
right
this is
here.
Winthrop down this end. So this is the south, that's the north.
Pat? Yes. Sure.
Okay, as you can see, he got a phone call. So everybody will wait.
2554.
Okay.
Any questions? One of the things that always, Tom, what was that second screen you put on? One of the funny things that I never get straight in the sewer business for whatever reason, you know how out on the street, green is go and red is stop? Well, on these things,
Just the
green is
opposite.
stop and red is go. So yeah.
What is anything that's running?
Well, why aren't they all running?
Some of the equipment's down for maintenance. We have a lot of redundant equipment for when we hit the heavier flow, when we get into running secondary and when the other pump stations come online. Right now, we have a lot of
Water and sanitary flows. Well, because the core city, Boston, Cambridge, Chelsea, and Somerville, still have combined systems. When it rains, there's an awful lot more water comes with the sewerage here. And so we have to treat it all as sewerage. And so there's an awful lot of stuff. This plant is designed for like 1.2 million gallons maximum. But on a day like today, we're only probably using a third of that. And so at any time, most of the time, most of the stuff out here isn't running. That's why, inflow and infiltration removal and all that stuff is so important. And that's why we've gone to the flow-based rates, so that the people who are causing us to have all this stuff, it'd be like having, like a family of 5, but living in a 10-bedroom house in case you have quintuplets. The next, you're paying for all that stuff that nobody's using, just in case. So it's, and that's the maddening thing. There's only a couple days a year that we use everything we get out here, but if we didn't have it, it'd be in your basement, and you'd be mad. So we've got
Be cleaning it up for 6 months.
Yeah. So that's the deal. And Tom, I just want to check. Tom, if the people from Winthrop call the Odor hotline, it gets answered here, right? On off hours.
on off hours. Yes, it's up here.
So if you call Monday through Friday with an odor, there's another guy named Tom Mislinski. I think it goes right to him. But if you call like tonight or tomorrow or something like that, it's Tom that you're going to be talking to, or somebody sitting here.
What happens when they call the odor control line?
Well, there's a whole bunch of things that are going to happen. In fact, we're going to be having we're going to try to go on WCAT and talk about it. And right now, we have the actual capability of going out and getting some tests and find out. We take an air sample and we find out what's in the air, and then we get like a fingerprint that tells us, this is a sewerage odor, and this is the composition. So that at some point we get an odor, we go out and we take a fingerprint, we find out that the components of a sewer odor aren't there, and then we say, well, it's not a sewer, and then we go look someplace else. We had a thing, it's not happened to me in Winthrop lately, but it happened that we have a facility out right on the line between Wakefield and Reading, and it's a small pump station, and we had some odor problems, and this guy called me one time, and he said it was an odor problem, and it was the treatment plant. We went out and it wasn't. So we find out what it is, and we went around the neighborhood. We found one of his neighbors got a bunch of pig manure for his lawn. It's just pretty much what you think, but in his mind, anytime you smell that smell, it had to be us. Well, sometimes it isn't, but that's how it was. So,
Thank you.
We're gonna, that's it. This is really where they kind of work, so we don't want to be in their way.
We're in front of the old pumping station. I think it's 1898.
Right.
And they had to keep this, I understand.
Yeah, this is the building that they kept for the historical value of it. And when you see inside, you'll appreciate it. But I think as you even see this, you'll see that this is the concept even at the guard place, that all these buildings are pretty well followed. This is the older concept. I keep telling them their problem down here is their product. If they change the name to the Deer Island Environmental Engineering industry, then it would raise their level, because it really is pretty, and there's no reason that because of what it treats, it can't be an asset to the environment. And that was part of Winthrop's concern from the day that this plant came here, and they've met that obligation, at least to this point. So I think it's something to see, and more people should come on here and just see what's here, because if this thing breaks down, we're the first line of defense, and we're going to make sure that it runs right.
Let's go inside.
Okay.
I want to point out a few things, and as I said, you can take your time. This right here, this is an overview of the whole project, and then these are some pictures. I want to point out a few things on the overview. Some features. This is the 9.5-mile long tunnel. It's generally on the heading of the graves. So when we get up on the hill, you look out toward the graves. The graves is about halfway out. The graves is about 4 miles out, so it's about halfway, not quite. And the terminus of the tunnel would be probably out around here on this scale. This is the inter-island tunnel that takes the flows that are currently being treated at Nut Island, brings them out here. You see the town. This is Four River Shipyard that we currently use barges, about 2 or 3 a week, coming from Deer Island. I think they go around and into the Four River. Within about 2 years, we're going to have we have some pipes. This tunnel is actually 2 ways. We have some pipes inside the tunnel, and we will be pumping the sludge over to Four River. So sewage will be coming this way, sludge will be coming that way. We're about 2 years away on that, actually maybe 3 years away. So for the next 3 years, you'll still see the barges out here. But within 3 years, you won't see any barges because it'll all be done underground. Here's the old island, or when I say the old island, this is the island, and this is probably about 1985, 86. I don't see a date here. But you see there is no pier, okay? This is the old plant, this is the Hill Prison, this is the area around the piggery. Here's Fort Dawes, all this in here. This is the gun batteries. There was a pistol range up here. I don't know, it was MDC cops or whoever it was. The building that we're in is kind of in ruins right around there. Now this would be about 1988. You see, we've started to build the piers. This would have been the period of biggest impact on the town, because in order to build the piers, we had to bring the equipment to build the piers through town. So maybe some of you remember when we had those big cranes coming through town. There was no alternative. So once we got them out here, we built the pier. Once we had the pier, everything else came over the pier. So I'd say the period around 1986, 1989 was the time that the town saw most of it. And you can see the Hill Prison is still there. This is the drumlin. You can see that there's not much around Shirley Gut yet. Now, I don't know, this would be about 1991. You can see we've started to dig into the drumlin. We've got some of the material out of here. You can see it's starting to appear down on the north end of the island. You can't tell, but the demolition of Fort Dawes has begun, and that was reinforced concrete. So we took it out, we took the rebar out, and the concrete rubble is at the base of that hill down there. So if you wanted to find old Fort Dawes, you'd have to dig about 60 feet down. One thing up here that I don't know if you can notice these trenches up here behind where the old piggery was, but some of you folks who have been here in the past know that there used to be a couple of cemeteries. And if you're a really senior member of the plan here, you know that even before the 30s, there were more cemeteries. There were like 4 or 5. When the federal government started building Fort Dawes, they combined 4 or 5 cemeteries to 2. There was the Rest Haven and another one I forget. Some of the bodies were taken to Fort Devens, and most of them ended up going into a common grave in what they called the New Rest Haven Cemetery, which was up here. There was another cemetery around here, but eventually everybody was kind of either, I think those folks have moved to Devens, and everybody else ended up in this common grave. But that we have records of about 1,200 people. The question was, you know, where exactly, by 1985, the question was, where exactly is that cemetery? Because we didn't want to, I mean, we've dug up most of the time, we didn't want to make any mistakes. So we commissioned some archaeologists to do some studies. And they did studies all around the area because we were also concerned that we had missed graves and so forth. But for the most part, it was up in here. When we started the excavation, probably about here, we had to build a haul road from here, and it kind of went around like this to this area here where we put the dirt. And you can see we built a wooden wall for to minimize the noise that would go out to Winthrop. So right in here. As we were coming through here, one of the heavy equipment operators noticed some human remains, and he stopped the vehicle. Now, I take a lot of pride in that because most heavy construction, if they saw it, keep going because they lose days' work, days' pay. We had drilled into them so much that we look at, you know, this isn't, we're not building a Walmart here. We're doing a public works. If we find bodies, you stop and you do the right thing. So they stopped. And you can ask anybody in heavy construction. That's very unusual. And it was my job to make sure that they got that message. So I take a little bit of pride in that. They actually stopped. We did all the right things, called the coroner, called everybody, ascertained that the remains were over 100 years old, which case you call the state historian who comes down. And they took them, state historian came down, archaeologist took them to Rhode Island, checked on the you know, the historicity of it. And they were mid-19th century folks from Western Europe who exhibited symptoms of famine. So they were probably Irish folks who came here during the famine. When there was a story about that, a bunch of folks, Native Americans, came out and said, wait a minute, you know, there's Indian graves out here, there's Indian remains. And in point of fact, while in 1675 Deer Island was used as a kind of a concentration camp for Indians during King Philip's War, and no doubt many of them died, the Indians that were taken out here were taken from their villages and chances are did not have, you know, what equipment would be necessary to get through the frost over a winter. So those that died were more likely either buried in the tidal area, where they've long since been, you know, broken down, or were held above ground and were eventually buried on Long Island in the spring because the Indians were transferred after the winter of 1675 to Long Island. And there are identified Native American graves on Long Island. So we have never found a Native American grave, and we have done always the right thing when we found human remains, and that is you call the coroner, you call the state police, they call the coroner, they make sure it's over 100 years old. Before it's 100, then they would deal as a potential homicide or whatnot, but after 100, it's the archaeologist. So we've always done the right thing, there have been from time to time rumors that there were Indian remains found. I'm here to tell you that there simply have not been. And in fact, there probably weren't any. Between 1675 and you know, the turn of the century, this area was put to heavy agricultural use. It was, you know, there were various public works things built here. All the topsoil had been turned over the years. And if there were any remains, they weren't deep because they just, the technology, what they had, and what they had with them at that time. So it's very unlikely. We haven't found any. We've turned the island essentially upside down, and it just isn't. But the rumors persist, and what can you do? And then you see the construction started here. This would be probably about 1992, 93. Construction started here. The existing plant is still in. You can see the existing plant. This would have been maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Existing plant is starting to being taken down. And I don't have any modern pictures of the existing plant down, but you can see it's down. I mean, when you walk out the door. So this is interesting. There's some pictures of the people who are working out here. About maybe between 7 and 8% of the construction force. At its high point, the construction force was about 4,000 people, I think, and about 8% or so were women. So a pretty good representation of that. Now that there's a smaller force, the percentage of women is higher because now you have the skilled trades, where it's not most of the women are in the skill. I mean, there's not a lot of women in the heavy construction end of it. A lot of them now are in the skilled trades. So the proportion of women is probably higher, but the absolute number of contract employees is much lower now. Probably at its lowest, and will continue. And by 1999, it will be all over.
Mr. Collier, I didn't get a chance to hear what you were saying about the people that died here. Could you tell us that?
Sure. We've had 3, and they've all been men, who have been killed in construction accidents out here on the island since the beginning of the project. And we have plaques to them here in the steam pump station. 2 of the men, the plaques are up already, and the third man, his plaque is being readied and will be installed shortly. And while that's a tragedy and it's certainly unacceptable, in the construction industry, for this size construction, this amount of construction, that's a very low number of fatalities. It's much too high in absolute terms, but in terms of what the industry averages are, we're very proud of the safety record out here.
Does the MWRA go to great lengths to ensure safety?
Oh yeah, well in fact we're right behind us are the safety officers, and absolutely, yeah, it's a I mean, you can see it in their signs, and safety is really the most important concern, because we are, after all, in the safety business. The whole ultimate, the end result of what we do is an increase in public health and public safety. So yeah, this, we're very proud of it. I mean, while there haven't been, 3 fatalities, there have been a lot of accidents, and in fact, I'm one of the people that got hurt out here. It's too much, but it's we've made a big investment in safety, and safety is very important to us.
Great. Well, I'm with Richard Farino, Chairman of the Historical Commission in the town of Winthrop, and we're in a building, Rich, that's approximately 1898.
Correct.
And they had to keep this building as part of the MWRA project.
Yes.
Alongside of us, Rich, are these things. What are they?
Well, it's my understanding that those were part of the source of power that generated the pumps and the created the steam that made the plant possible.
And they're not in operation now?
No, those are just the front panels of the original combines or whatever that generated the.
Okay, let's turn over to this side of us. And what are some of these things?
Well, these are the old pumps that brought the sewage from the localities, and this is where they pumped it out to the ocean. Back then, it was a lot less sophisticated and efficient than it is today by any means. But when they built it in the early late 1800s, this was state of the art, and it's come a long way.
Okay, now Richard, as a member of the Historic Commission, it's very important that we preserve some of the old buildings in the town, and this is one of them. How do you feel about what the MWRA has done as far as combining the old with the new?
Well, they did a wonderful job of utilizing this building. They made it as a partial museum memorial and to the gentleman that passed away out here, and also a training center for new employees and conference and visiting center. This is a typical example of just the utilization you can use for an old building. The architecture was preserved, and like I said, a lot of the old apparatus looks great. But you know, and one of the things is that they mocked the rest of the architecture on the island with this as the prime example. So a lot of the buildings that are designed out here have the red brick and the arches and the you know, the bluestone or the brownstone in them. So it's just a great example.
Okay, so Rich, we're going to be getting back on the bus, and I think we're going to another part of the island, so I'll see you on the bus.
Okay, thank you.
Looking at Cottage Hill from the northernmost point on Deer Island. We're looking back into the town of Winthrop. You can see Seal Harbor. You can see Cottage Hill and the water tower. You can see Point Shirley, Ural Beach right in front of us. This is Saturday morning, March 15th, 1997. Panning out now, you can see over Lynn Harbor, looking out toward Nahant, and past Nahant you can see the smokestack from the Salem Willows New England Power Company station, and you can see parts of Marblehead as well. In the background you can see Cape Ann. Okay, come on, hey! This stuff here, these rocks, this came out of the tunnel. This is tunnel muck. Okay, watch your this is icy. Watch your step.
I got enough weight to hold me down.
This is muddy here. Watch your step. Yeah, this is
Quite as windy.
This is now. Remember the day the tall ships came in?
Oh, yes.
There was a fog over the water. I was standing with a cup of coffee around 20 minutes past 7 when the fog lifted. You saw Broad Sound all filled with it was a beautiful, beautiful spot. You can see that now. This is there'll be a fence on the water side, but you can see where you'd have, you know, if you were out here fishing and you hadn't been out here for a while, you could. I mean, those rocks are new. This riprap, but this is kind of the area that'll be part of the this high ground, and all the way down to the pier will be part of the walkway. Yep.
That's like they have in Newport.
Huh? So we have the little hibachi. Yeah. Yeah. Now we're gonna walk down here, and I'm gonna show you the new Rest Haven Cemetery. And for those of you who haven't been out here for a while, I'll show you the only part of the wall. Remember the wall between the federal property and the Suffolk County property? There's only one little part of that left, and we'll go see that. And then that's really it. Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure. I think it would be, but I don't know. I shouldn't say that. Nobody really has focused on it. These are the guys that are doing the tunnel. There's a meeting in progress, so we'll just kind of walk by here. If you followed this walkway all the way to the end, you'd end up in the tunnel. Yeah, we're going to go down here.
Lenny, this is not your your average tour, is it?
No, this is the cook's tour. This is the cook's tour. Here you can see the wall out the window here. This is probably the best view of the wall. You can see it's in pretty lousy shape. It was in lousy shape when we got it. I mean, it's not that we did anything to it.
Oh, you mean on the side of the slant?
Yeah.
Why do they get those little tin cups up there for?
If the electricity goes out, they put candles up in there.
So many people walking now. It's gonna be so nice for them. Honey, I hope when they open up the walking path, they stop animals from going there, just people.
Yeah, well, okay, watch your step coming down here. Watch your step. There's a little spring here.
Oh, that bounces
Just,
up?
yeah, go in.
Watch yourself.
Yeah, that's, I don't know why that's there, but it's there.
It's just a little step for short legs like mine.
Probably cost us an arm and a leg to get rid of it. Watch your step there. There's a little springboard there. Watch your step with the springy thing. I'll show you in a second. That's your step. Watch your step. Watch your step on that spring there. It's a little give to it, sure. Watch your step now. Watch it. That I girl. Good? Everybody good here? All right. This is behind you. This is the New Rest Haven Cemetery. This is where the bodies are. It's about 1,200 here, in for the most part, mass graves. We're going to, you know, we've fenced it off. This has been the way it's been since we started construction, except we put more dirt on top. And in the next year, probably this summer, we'll begin to, you know, seed it and bring in some loam, and we'll replace. We have some of the old cemetery furniture. Some of you remember the cast iron links and the pillars. Some of that's here. Some of it disappeared. We've got one of the old crosses that we have it in storage at Fall River. We were going to just kind of bring it back and rehab it, but it's a cement cross, and it isn't even worth the money it would take to rehab it. So we're probably just going to buy a new granite cross, and there'll be a reinterment. The 17 bodies that I mentioned that we found are going to be reinterred here probably next year. So the next time, you know, in a year and a half, 2 years, you come out here, and this will be recognizable as a cemetery with everything we have. There are a few people, believe it or not, who know they have ancestors here, and from time to time they call and come out. And of course, if they want to put a stone up or whatever, I mean, well, you know, it's a cemetery. As you look back now, we're at the north end of the island looking south. In front of us, you can see this part under construction. This is the secondary area that's under construction. You can see Battery A in front of you. Battery B is off to the right. Battery C is just getting under construction, and Battery D, the area will stay, but we've been allowed not to construct Battery D. So this is where the biological activity will take place. Off to the left of these, you see these two little canisters here. Off to the left, you see a channel. That's where the disinfection happens. After we take all the solids out of the sewerage, we're currently using sodium hypochlorite to disinfect, and that's like concentrated Clorox. We used to use chlorine, you recall. We used to have to bring the trucks through town. Well, we got out of the chlorine business. You can hear that whirring noise. Some of you, if you live up on Cottage Hill, you hear that. That's the vents from the tunnel. We got to pull the bad air out of the tunnel. And the tunnel is at the base. See that little tower thing there on the 4 posts? That's the lift into the tunnel. And that tunnel, you get on that lift and you go down 380 feet. Actually more. You'd go down about 400 feet. Yeah, you go down for quite a while, and then you get into the tunnel. And we've had complaints from time to time. Actually, the thing that recurs most are the backup beepers on the trucks. People, given the right winds and stuff, can hear it down in Point Shirley. And we've really tried everything. I think we've got, you know, we've built barriers and all this stuff, and I think we're a little bit ahead of the game, but every once in a while, in the right conditions, that happens. And we can't disconnect them. I mean, it's a rule. It's an OSHA rule and all that. so we can't. And you can see here's the remains of the wall right here. So that's really it for the tour now. If you,
Marie, this was
Hi,
a
Judy.
wonderful tour.
Wasn't it good? Yeah. I think the more Winthrop people see what is definitely going on down here, I think the more secure they're going to feel in the operation and the makeup of this plant. I was telling you a little earlier, last week, I was part of a panel on the island with approximately 200 of the workers. And I tell you, it gets a little amazing to you. You think that you have pride in your work every day, and so do they. And as long as we can keep that going, it's an asset to the community, because you know that plant's gonna be kept at the level it is. They should change the name a little bit or something, just to give people a different, but they have built, or almost completed, a state-of-the-art facility. And if you're going to spend money on something, it's going to cost you 3/4 of it, and the last quarter that puts the icing on the cake and makes it run right and makes it look well and be an asset to the surrounding abutting community benefits us. And it benefits everybody, because they've got to keep that plant going the way it was built to go. And I look at this water and I marvel. Now you look at it, it's green and blue and it's pretty. And when they do that secondary, it's going to glisten like a diamond. And that's what turns these other projects into Winthrop on the wheels. You're going to see as we go by here the construction that's going on at Euro Beach, Donovan's Beach, Shore Drive is going to be restored. These projects and projects like them would never have gotten off the ground if the water was still in the condition it was 5 years ago. So it's been costly, it's been horrendous. The cost of the bills has been a lot of money, but in the long run, we are going to get benefits beyond our wildest dreams from it. And we just have to get in there now. It'll come. There are areas we're looking at to try and get it back down a little bit again, but the one area you never let it go is the maintenance of that plant.
Well, I think that's the problem with a lot of buildings in our town, other towns, in industries, is they don't keep up with the maintenance.
No.
So therefore, you run into serious problems down the line.
Right. You're right. And that's been the concept of this. It's being built state-of-the-art to be maintained state-of-the-art. As Lenny told you, it's Lenny Colley from the MWRA, Public Relations, who was kind enough to give up a Saturday morning to take us on this tour.
And I think we should tell our viewers that the tours are available.
Oh yeah, they're going to, as I understand it, there are plans to open them up throughout the summer.
Well, they're certainly doing a wonderful job, Marie. Thank you for arranging
Judy,
the tour.
thank you for coming.
And we'll do this again, and I'll see you on the walkway.
I hope so. When it's all done, we're all going back.